Welcome to the Hypervoice, episode 48. This is a show all about Pokemon's video game championship series. I am your host, Steven Morioka, and today I am joined by Alex Underhill.
Heyo!
And we are also joined by Jonathan Evans.
Sup, guys? How's it going?
Welcome, everybody, to our show. We are fresh off the North America International Championship, coming straight off of that tournament. It was big, it was massive, it was very exciting. We saw a lot of neat things happen. We're going to cover a lot of things that happened in the event as well. So, let's get straight to it. So, let's not get straight into it. I just want to go over some quick feedback before we talk about some of the events that happened in there. Just want to do quick, just read a few things that, some comments, some feedback we've been getting from people. So this was actually back when we talked about, Incineroar a lot, a few episodes back. Jamie Boyd, this is from YouTube. Jamie Boyd says, Incineroar is awful and Salazzle is superior in every way.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That sounds right for Jamie Boyd.
Yep. Yeah.
I just think it's true, you know. I think Incineroar is a terror. I'm kidding.
Yep.
Nice. So yeah, there's that. Now, some other things we have here is that, so this is again for YouTube. So the entire third story of the Hershey factory says, so egg moves aren't really in danger, right? You can just breed them on in Ultra Sun and Ultramoon, then transfer it and use it for breeding in Sword and Shield to get the egg move. So this is in regards to one of the comments we talked about last week about Sword and Shield, about we're not going to have a national deck. So I was concerned about how how some Pokemon may be limited on the egg moves they can get, but I completely forgot about this mechanic. This is like the old man VGC player I am, thinking, oh yeah, egg moves are only bred from other Pokemon or the males or whatever, but yeah, within the same species, you can pretty much get any egg move you want if you transfer them over, so yeah, they're not in danger. This person is correct.
Okay, cool.
And another thing we got here, another comment we got from Alex Piney, the episode was as interesting and enjoyable as always, and I'm excited to hear more about the Dynamax moves in the future. And from Alistair, who says, love the content. And from iTunes, actually, we got a 5-star review, and this is from Awesome Aggie, who says, great podcast for those who want to know what is going on in the VGC community, and for people looking to hear about unique teams without breaking down EVs and spreads, which would get rather dull. Also, the show frequently has guests come in to break down tournaments they attended and what was run to learn how the metagame evolves throughout the year. Thank you all for your comments and feedback. We really appreciate that for the show. Now, let's jump into the North America International Championship. We're going to talk about the event itself, the metagame, everything that happened there. And one of the things we do want to talk about before the main event is that how the Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield demo, which was present at E3, was here at this event. So if you had the time, if you had the opportunity, you were able to play this, play the demo there. So, Alex and John, I want to ask you here, did you get a chance to play the demo, at all?
Unfortunately, John and I were too good at Pokemon to get the chance.
Yeah, sorry, Steven. No, so I could have played on day 3, but the line seemed a little bit unappealing. And also, I kind of want to wait till the game comes out. I'm not super interested in demos. I want to just play Pokemon Sword and Shield, you know?
It'll be interesting to see if this demo ends up getting released, or some form of a demo released for us to try on our Switches at home, since they've done that with past games, if I do recall correctly.
Yeah, they did that for Sun and Moon, where you had the Ash Greninja quest. And
yes.
I really did enjoy that, but I'm not like super concerned about them having it or not having it.
Do you remember what it was about in ORAS in the demo?
I don't remember an ORAS demo.
Wasn't that where, like, they take you to the island to find Latios or Latios?
It was something like that, and then you used it to get, I think it was Glalie and Steelixite to get their Mega Evolution forms. I don't know if the stones were released in another form later, but I remember that was how you were supposed to get them originally.
Sure.
Yeah,
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, so that would have been in the distant past now, but anyways, yeah, you both were advanced to further stages at the competition. But I do agree that this is probably a demo that's going to be released to the public in general through the Nintendo Switch, so you'll just be able to play that later on. I was just really interested to play it because I've never really played a demo, in person before at a at a kiosk, because I've never been to E3. It's on the bucket list to go to E3 at some point. But I'll quickly just go over what I thought about it in general, and then we'll just move on from there. Some of the general things I thought about is that it ran pretty smoothly. I liked a lot of the textures in there. Everything looked crisp. It played pretty well. The gym was probably more suited for a demo rather than being an actual water type gym, because we got to face against Nessa in there. You had your team of the starters plus Corviknight, Yamper, and Wooloo, so you could play around just to see what those were like. You were able to check stats and stuff. Funny thing was, when you're in the overworld in the gym, you couldn't press any buttons essentially. So I tried all the buttons on the paired Joy-Con together, and nothing worked. All I could do is talk to those switches or the people. No menus were available, so that's fine. Suitable for the demo, right? They're just trying to keep layouts and stuff hidden. I understand that. Otherwise, battle-wise, it felt very similar, familiar. If you played the Let's Go games, all the menus were kind of stacked on one side of the screen. Everything was mapped to a button or something. So it makes me curious just how we're going to be playing with our Switches in the future, whether we're all going to be on handheld together or playing on separate docks and TVs, kind of like how they had Pokken set up.
Yes.
So I don't know. Last thing I want to mention is the trainer you're playing as has a 227 on the back of the jersey when they walk in or whatever. And that's an easy number to figure out. That's just Pokemon's birthday. But Nessa has a 049. So 049 on her shorts, and I don't know what that means. So I'm curious about that. Also with Dynamax, we did learn some more things about that. Some of the moves, and I know Joe Merrick from Cerebi also got to see or confirmed that the Dynamax moves' powers are going to vary depending on the original move they are coming
like
from.
Z-moves.
Yes, very similar to Z-moves. So that's a really quick thing. Another thing with Dynamax is how, when the Pokemon get really large, the camera zooms out way above the stadium, because, they're both giant monsters.
Yes.
And you can't really see your training anymore. This makes me curious about why they have this weird dark cloud above them when they're Dynamaxed. It's kind of like a dark aura. What's the deal with that? And if Dynamax is in VGC next season, what's that going to look like for doubles when you have 2-on-2? If only one of your Pokemon can be Dynamaxed at a time, is it going to be strange to see on the screen? And it makes me also wonder if Dynamax will be in VGC at all because of this whole camera dynamic. We've only been able to see it in gyms and the stadiums so far, I believe. So, and maybe out in the wild, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think they mentioned. I recall something being mentioned about how Dynamaxing was only available in certain areas. So I'm not sure if it's necessarily even a competitive thing. But since you could use it in gyms, I imagine you could use it in whatever the, space where you would fight your friends would be, which would mean it would almost certainly be VGC legal.
Yes. I had my own theory on the jersey numbers, which is I just think it's going to be the Pokedex number of whatever their signature Pokemon is.
Oh, that's a pretty good theory, actually.
I looked up the national Pokedex numbers, and they were Venomoth, and they were Skarmory for 227, and Venomoth for 49. So clearly the national
Dex.
Yeah, definitely the Galar Dex, not the national Dex.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a pretty good approach to think about it that way. I just thought about dates or something else. I don't know, but not super important, but always fun to think about. So that was me rambling about the Sword and Shield demo. Let's get to the main event, and we're obviously not going to stop talking about Sword and Shield stuff in the future. This will keep popping up here and there, but onwards to the main event. So for the Masters division, we started on Friday. We had about 260 people. I want to say 262 to be exact, something like
Masters.
that. But
you said people.
I'll just
Masters.
What about Masters?
You said 260 people. I don't know what the other divisions had, but it was 262 Masters or so.
Yeah, I think I wrote this down. I saw it was around 43 seniors and then 30 juniors, somewhere in that ballpark. But we were significantly smaller than normal, but that's
definitely.
okay.
It was a little bit it's a little bit worrying to see numbers decrease year after year. I do think that in part that's as a result this year of the 3DS finally dying out, and of it being a restricted format, which is not accessible because it's really hard to get restricted Pokemon that are competitively viable, and also
Agreed.
A lot of people don't feel that great about playing in restricted formats. I think restricted formats are quite a bit less fun than other formats, despite the fact that I have a lot more success in them than others. Mm-hmm. I think that it's hard to use, your favorite Pokemon and so forth. Even though Graham managed to use some really weird choices, like a lot of people don't like having to be forced into, I pretty much have to bring 2 Tapu. Graham was, had a Metacham, but he had 2 restricteds, 2 Tapus, and an Ultra Beast. And I think people don't really like that, even if they can use, one cool Pokemon.
Something else to consider is that the Switch is coming up, so hopefully that will bring a revival of numbers.
The 3DS did back when X and Y was released. I remember SoCal Regionals was at 500 players or something insane.
Well, I wasn't at SoCal. I was part of that 3DS era boom, because that's when I started VGC, and that's when I know a lot of people entered the game.
Yes, yeah, and John's right about that regional there. You remember that one went to 1 or 2 a.m.?
Yeah, that's the problem with one-day regionals. I think that, two-day regionals are set up really well for the types of numbers that TCG has, and I hope that it's set up really well for the types of numbers that VGC will hopefully have in the coming years.
Yeah.
Did Alberto win that one?
I think it was Gavin, or not Gavin, or Gavin got
that
second.
was the one Omari won.
Yes.
Omari.
Gavin was in finals.
Yes, Gavin was in finals, and it was a Charvinu mirror.
Yep, pretty much. But yeah, that's a good point about just the numbers and growth, and hopefully it's just not cyclical with the way that games have been rolling out these past decade or so, but yeah, it was a little disheartening to see that. And I was like, oh, the numbers are kind of low, especially me coming back and all that. But I just want to talk about, all of our day ones really quick. I'll start off because I have the shortest story to tell here. I started off 5-1, starting off really nicely, then dropped the last 3. So, boo-hoo for me, didn't make it. Ended up finishing in 69th place.
Nice.
So, nice is right. So, yeah, 69th place at 5-4. I didn't have any expectations coming into this tournament, and I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, and that was to have fun. So, I did that.
I mean, 69th for 5-4 is not bad. I remember in 2016 when I got 129th for 5-4.
Yeah.
So,
good point.
That's I will really say, not that bad.
Yeah, I'll say I was at the top of the 5-4s among that group at least.
Makes sense.
It was just resistance. That's all, really.
Yeah.
As for me, a large part of what happened to me was because of the smaller attendance this year. I did want to mention it before we totally explain what happened to me, but the way that the Day 2 system works is for North American Internationals was that you allow into the second day all people with 2 losses or fewer, or the top 32 players after Day 1 Swiss, whichever number is greater. And in all the past years, we've been around 400 attendance, and that led us to having just a little bit over 32 players to the X and 2 record, so they all made it in. This is one of those years where after Swiss, we had something like 27-ish or something X and 2 players. So some X and 3 players with 3 losses, were able to make it in. And that's actually where I ended up falling. I started off 5-0 in the tournament, feeling pretty good, won my 5th round on stream pretty convincingly. And then I lost the next 3, and
Who'd you
to
play
make it
on
even
stream?
better. What's that?
Who'd you end up playing on stream? I just didn't get the chance to watch.
Nimial Catapone.
Oh, you got to play Layman on stream. Oh, that's awesome. I'll make sure to watch that when this is done.
Especially since Steven and I know, I believe you were around at the time, Steven. Nimial was basically our local. We also have had Nimial on the show in the past, talking a bit about this.
Yeah, he was a good friend of mine back in 2016, because he kept working with Anosh, and then it was really cool to meet him at Worlds, and then again this year.
And he, a large part of his 2016 season he spent in the U.S., because he is a player from outside of the U.S., I believe in the Philippines.
Yes, I believe
so. If I'm wrong.
That's correct.
And he was studying abroad here, so it was almost funny that I was playing a semi-local, somebody I'm very familiar with, at the on the stage, on the side not the side stream, but the VGC stream. And then after that, I did lose 3 in a row, going 0-6 in those 3 matches. It was a really, really rough fall from grace.
Rough, man. I'm sorry.
I started out 10-1 and then went 0-6, and I was like, okay, well, there goes my chances at day 2, but let's play this last round, give it my all. Played against Alvin again in one of our funniest sets yet. I mean, Alvin and I have played once before at 0-3 on day 2 of Worlds, so we played a very funny match with nothing on the line. This time, it was a little bit more on the line, but again, a very crazy set where there was like 5 crits and like plenty of misses and just an overall crazy game. Moving me to 6-3.
Did Alvin get double team killed? Because I beat Alvin round 1.
Yeah, then I guess so, because I ended up beating him. He played a friend in the first and then a friend in the last, and I'm sure plenty of friends in between too. But
Alvin has a lot of friends.
He does have a lot of friends.
Well, that's a good thing at least.
But not when you have to play him in tournament. And so, I ended up beating him in the final round, and looking at my opponent's records, I was like, they all did pretty well. I lost to some strong players, and I might be able to slip into cut. I think 9 or so players with X and 3 records made it in to the second day, and I was one of them. I made it in at 28th, so pretty much in the middle of the pack, and I was very surprised after kind of tripping and falling on my face in the middle of the tournament to still be able to move on.
It was 8 players.
Gotcha.
With 6 and 3.
Pretty much in the
I
middle.
just checked the standings.
Yeah, yep, 8 is correct. So that's Alex's day 1. John, tell us about yours.
My day 1 was a little bit more gratifying than those 2 stories. I started off 4-0. I had just beaten Marco Fierro, who was recently secured top 16 in Europe. And then I played Graham, and he destroyed me. I beat him the first game, but couldn't pull out the rest. We'll talk about what happens to Graham later. And then I didn't lose. I played some hard, just 8-1. Finished it really strong.
You were really good at going 4-0.
Yes,
That you just did it
and
twice.
Lost and then went 4-0 again. Yep. I had a really great match against Paul in the last round. Because we were all really tired, and there was a bunch of like friends at the top tables. It was like me, James, Ashton, Paul, like all really close. And my game 1 against Paul, Paul had a very bad lead against my lead. I had like game planned it out very well, and so he led Amungus, Xerneas into Coco Metagross. I went for the turn 1 Skydrop Meteor Mash. For those who don't know, when you Skydrop a Pokemon that's used Rage Powder, it disables the Rage Powder. So
a very fun, flashy play to start it off.
Yes, and Paul was like, game 2. And Ashton was still in TP, just looks over, so like, what? What just happened?
Yeah.
And so I had a lot, and so Paul and I had a lot of fun, joking around. I got to play Davide Carrere, runner-up at the Berlin IC, which was really fun. He was an excellent player. I got to play...
Oh, I played him twice.
He's really good. And I got to fight against an AV Dialga, which was terrifying.
Oh. I mean, just fighting against Dialga in general when you're using Rayquaza and Kyogre is a bit scary.
Yeah, he also had a Ferrothorn. And Virium Z Tapu Koko.
Oh, yeah. He sounds like he was very angry at Rayquaza Kyogre duos.
Yes, and I managed to beat him, and he ended up being 33rd seed, which is really unfortunate for Trevor.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Rest in peace. 130 CP is a decent amount, but...
So then moving forward, John and I both made it into the second day of competition, as well as... for our house, the people that we were staying with, Raghav made it in as just like me with a 6-3 record. And so, in terms of my prep for day 2, I did little to none. There was some document going around that had all the teams, so I looked at them. I saw everybody that had 6-3 record, and I was like, I don't really want to play against any of these people. All these matchups look stressful. So I just decided to prepare for none of them. And it turned out not too badly. I played against Diana in the first round, unfortunately, because she is a local player from the Chicago region, so coming all this way to just play somebody I could have played at home. And one of us had to basically knock the other one out of the chance of the slim chance of making it into the top 8.
In order to get into the top 8 from going 6-3, you pretty much had to go 5-0.
It's not a pretty much.
Yeah, fair enough. You had to go 5-0.
It is a definite.
That's a tall order for anybody.
Because your resistance in day 2 is based on how the people you face in day 2 are performing, not their end records. So even if you win at 6-3, there's like a 50. So even if you win your first round, there's a 50-50 chance you get paired against someone who lost their first round versus someone who won their first round. So the resistance is a little bit weird to figure out.
And it's always going to be, holding you back. And so you pretty much had to go 5-0. And so looking at that, knowing that I had to go undefeated in the second day to make it at the top cut, that was part of like why I was like, it's a tall mountain to climb. We'll just see how it goes. I'm not going to stress myself too much and just get some good night's sleep, get some, have some good fun with friends. And I ended up doing pretty well. The only person to blame was John himself here.
Sorry, guys.
Ending my run after going 3-0. Played some tough opponents along the way. Played John, got it to a third game, but he was able to clinch it. And then the last round, I had to win to nail top 16. And wouldn't you know, it was actually a rematch, my only rematch of the tournament against Davide Carrere. He had beaten me down pretty hard during the middle of my 06 run on the first day. And I was like, this is going to be very tough. Like, do I think I can do it again? And we had a 3-game set, and it ended with a pretty fun play, me throat-chopping a Groudon that used Roar. And it was unable to use any sound moves. So that locked me in my top 16. And as we kind of mentioned, my resistance was always going to be poor starting 6-3. So I finished 13th, no chance at making cut, but I did make top 16, earned a bit of money, and pretty happy with my performance.
My day 2 starts with me facing some different players and ends a little bit differently. So I started by facing a rematch against Graham, which was really unfortunate because I have a pure auto loss against Graham. It's not possible to win. And
you took a win.
So, what?
You took a win day 1.
Yeah, I beat him the first game I played
sorry.
him because he didn't understand the matchup. Then he understood the matchup and brought the correct Pokemon, and I lost. 6 games in a row. I kind of won one of those, but I lost 6 games in a row, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And then I rematched against Graham, got destroyed. Then I played Marco Fierro, and I beat him again. He took a game off me, but it was because I missed a Meteor Mash, which,
So another
happens.
rematch.
Yeah. Then I played John Paul, who also made top 8. And he destroyed me on the side stream. So if you guys want to, see me lose for whatever reason, feel free. Leonard will probably have video of that. Then I faced Alex, and I felt like I was able to... I got a little bit lucky and unlucky in game 2, but Alex made a really strong play on turn 1 that gave him an advantage that I was able to claw myself back from with some fortunate and unfortunate misses on my side, I believe. I missed an Origin Pulse to put me back into the game, although it might not have killed.
It was kind of funny.
Water spout damage later. And then I missed the Origin Pulse to put myself back in the game, and then missed an Origin Pulse on a boosted Xerneas to lose the game.
Sometimes you want to. Sometimes you want to hit those. Sometimes you want to miss them. It's kind of funny.
No, I've done that. I've done that a few times before against Davide. Actually, it turned out that I hit a water spout on his Mence, which left it alive at 1 HP, which prevented him from switching in his Incineroar for free, which was actually very much in my favor. It sealed the game when I was likely to win anyway.
Yeah, it's always a big part in these restricted formats where free switches can mean a very different board state, and so sometimes leaving your opponent's Pokemon alive is the best move.
Yeah, and so I did that while I managed to set up an extra Swords Dance with my Rayquaza, so +3 Rayquaza was gonna take out his Xerneas pretty convincingly. But I faced Graham, I lost. I faced Marco Fierro in a rematch, I beat him. I faced John Paul, I lost. I faced Alex, I beat him. And then I faced Kyle Livinghouse, who was 11-2 and thus guaranteed top 8, and decided that he wanted to have me in top 8 because he's just a pretty nice guy. As it turns out, just looking at my resistance in retrospect, my resistance was 64%, which was precisely Graham's resistance. And if I had lost to Kyle, I would have had it would have gone up, and Graham's resistance would have gone down. So I was actually, as it turns out, based on the rest of the results from round 14, guaranteed top 8 regardless of the result.
Yeah, so you just would have switched the seating a little bit in the bracket.
Yeah. And I probably would have gotten a worse seating. I actually got, I think, the best seating I could have gotten.
Mm-hmm. And so, John, your run's not quite over.
Yeah.
We'll
talk about that in a little bit.
Sure.
I just want to really quickly mention here how I really got to work on getting into these day 2s, because I remember so on day 2 I was not playing in it, but that's the time when I went to go play the Sword and Shield demo, and I was just wandering around watching matches on the TVs and on stream and stuff, and I just mentioned how, boy, I really wish I'd made day 2. This is really boring.
That's I was telling this to the people that I was with, but I was like, I really want to make day 2, not so much because of the accomplishment. Obviously, it's great to feel good about making day 2, but I didn't know what I was going to do in Columbus. I was like, am I going to watch all these players that are just better than me? That's no fun. There's nothing to do. So I very much understand where you're coming from, Steven.
And it's look, you want to be invested in the game and just be able to watch some of the stronger players and just learn from those matches and stuff. But yeah. I wish I had made it. Wish I'd won. One of those last rounds at the end there on day 1 for me.
If I had made it in, I was probably going to play some. If I had not made it in, I was probably going to play some Hearthstone with Nails. So I actually had come up with a plan for what to do. Just in case.
Yeah, awesome. That's good. So,
also day 2 is super fun. Playing Pokemon is just Pokemon's just so fun.
All 5 of my games were 3-game sets, and I was almost always the last game in the round. So pretty much everyone was waiting on me, looking at me like, "Why is Alex always taking so long?" I don't even know if it was me. I felt like I was doing some things that went somewhat fast. It was just the game stretched and stretched and stretched, and trust me, I didn't enjoy it.
I mean, I don't know. I like my long series. I think all of my wins in day 2 were 2-1, and all of my except for against Kyle, but that doesn't even count. And all of my losses were 2-0. So when I was winning, it was taking me a while, and when I was losing, I was out of there real quick. they were brutal. They were bloody. I was gone.
Great stuff to hear about day 2. Always want to be, have that nice prestige of, hey, I made it to the second day and I get to play. It always feels really cool when you're in that small select group who's still in the tournament and everyone else is not and they're just watching. So, congrats to both of you on those finishes. And John's story actually isn't over yet because we're going to talk about Top Cut. But before we talk about any of those games and heading into finals and who won and stuff, we got to talk about a controversy that happened during this tournament. So,
do you want to talk about the records first, or do you want to talk about Pado first?
That's what we're talking about, I think. I thought we were talking about the fact that Wolf got 2 buys.
Well, the first one was random and by Swiss, so that one is just it happens, right? So, that was from Swiss. You can't do anything about that one. Now, yeah. So actually, we did have another topic before we were going to get into talking about Flavio Del Pidio and that situation. So thanks for reminding me there, John. But we just really want to talk about what kind of impact we have, or impact for the tournament that records carrying over to day 2 has. So, you have your day 1 Swiss, day 2 Swiss, and your record from both days gets combined into a final record, right? So, ultimately, what happened in there is that we saw the there was a 12-2 seed, 2 of them, right? Yeah. John Paul and Melvin both had 12-2.
John Paul's really good, by the way. He is a very powerful
if it's not evident in the fact that he made top 4, yeah.
You could it's theoretically possible to make top 4 while not being that great, but John Paul is very good. I just wanted to make that. I just wanted to say that.
And he seems like a nice guy, so great for him.
Yeah, could be a strong contender for a strong Worlds finish there. So very nice. So we had 2 12-2s, and then the remaining, or 5 more were 11-3. And then we had Graham Amity, who ended up becoming the runner-up at this tournament, finish as the 8th seed at 10-4, thanks to that resistance. So, good work on his part. So that was our top cut bracket of what happened there, right? So one of the concerns there is that you want to always kind of evaluate how people did on day 2. Or at least this is what I'm thinking here. So we did a little compilation here of everyone's records and how they did on the second day. And Alex, your record for day 2 was 4-1.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were in an older style national tournament where we used to reset records,
I wouldn't have even been in the second day of competition.
Yes, you would have made top cut that day.
No, but I would not have even made the second day.
So the way I feel about this is just like first things first. I think that the way that the tournament is structured is like I can't come up with an independent reason for resetting records. It seems to me that, day 1 Swiss is just as valuable as day 2 Swiss. It's just Swiss, right? And so I have questions about the way resistance precisely works. I'm not super sure. Like, I'd be comfortable changing the way resistance is calculated in day 2, but I don't think that it's there's a good reason to make records carry over, in itself. In particular, there's a good reason to make records. There is a good reason to make records carry over, and it's what happened in part to Randy Quah in 2014 or 15 nationals. And I can't expect everyone to remember this, but AMR 97 was locked and then scooped to Randy when Randy was 6-2 and AMR was, I believe, 7-1, and he did that because it didn't matter for him. I don't have a problem with scooping per se, but I think I have a problem with, as many rounds as resetting the bracket does, being unimportant. I feel like I played 2 really good sets when I played a really good set to lock my day 2, and I played a really good set after that against Paul, and it would have kind of sucked for that set just to not matter because the record's reset. I feel like going 8-1 was an actual accomplishment. And that should be reflected in my results.
So we see the opposite structure at Worlds and it's necessary because of the way that we have day 2 buys given to players who finish in the top 8 at the end of the season. But at Worlds, if you say had 8 rounds and all X and 2s move on to the next day, when you reach 6-0 in Worlds, they pull you out of the tournament. And this is kind of the opposite system looking at what we are seeing being run at NAIC, at Nats. And so those are the 2 systems that I think are kind of like at like head-to-head right now, is which of these do you prefer? Because on the one hand, like, you reward those players for playing the rest of their rounds. They get something to do in those final rounds. Not that anybody wants to play more Pokemon than they have to, but jokes aside, it's something like that rewards players for going undefeated. I remember in 2015, I played against Aaron Zhang, who we had on last week, in the final round of final round of Day 1 Swiss. In 2015, and he was 8-0, and I was 7-1. He had to get paired down to somebody. He got me, and the only reason he tried to beat me was because he wanted to get the 9-0 and look really cool on the first day. And obviously, I couldn't let that happen, so I had to beat him down. But
nice job, dude.
Other than that, like it was irrelevant though.
Exactly. The match was irrelevant. I had something similar happen, but it was more relevant. Actually, at the second day of that competition, I just wanted to tell this story, even if it's not totally relevant. I played Hayden in the last round, who was the 5-0, and he was 5-1 or something like that. No, it was something
4-1.
I can't remember how many rounds.
No. Hayden must have been 4-0, and you must have been 3-1.
I think it was a 6-round second day.
Oh, it might have been 6 rounds.
I think he was 5-0 and I was 4-1, and I needed to win to guarantee cut, whereas he did not, but he decided to play it anyway, and I did beat him. So I had a very strong run in 2015, there's no doubting that, but something else that's fun about the run is that I got to defeat both of the players attempting to have undefeated runs in the final round. That's kind of
cute.
So,
speaking of people who defeated people they didn't have to, I believe Melvin played out his last round in the tournament to go 12-2 when he could have when he was in fact pared down to a 10-3.
Okay.
Oh, that's right. I think you're right about that.
If Melvin hadn't played it out, Graham would not have been in top cut.
Yeah, so just the way the tournaments ran out, and I get both of you have valid points about that.
With regards to the day 2 world structure, though, I think that I think that only happens because day 1 is just an LCQ, and so I think that just running a full Swiss tournament for as many Swiss rounds as we feel is necessary is good. I think that the day 1, day 2 phrasing is kind of a misnomer that leads to a conflation between the two systems, but I think the systems are in fact quite different. And I think for large open tournaments, what you want is you just want as many Swiss rounds and you want all of them to count.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I really just want to see the best players playing on day 2 and just having those records come against each other. We can still have the day 1 records matter. I just want to see them moved into a tiebreaker of sorts rather than being a part of your actual record.
So, I'm not going to put words in Steven's mouth, but I think Steven's just saying he wants to see me in the top cut because I went 4-1 day 2. So I'm very fine with this system. And also, Graham had a very respectful run. He did very well in the tournament. And so we're not trying to drag him down, but he did go 2-3 on the second day and was still able to make it into a cut. John pointed out to us earlier. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so Graham did go 2-3 on the last day, but I believe every single player Graham played was in top cut. Round 1, Graham played me. Round 2, I think Graham played Melvin. He played Ashton. I think he played John Paul. And in his last round, he played Pato at 10-3. So I think every single one of the players Graham played was in top cut. Ended up in top cut. And so even though he went 2-3, he went 2-3 against what I would claim is a far harder bracket than Alex's bracket, which starts with with all due respect to Diana, a 7-7, and
yes, a 6-3. A person who started at 6-3, who made it into the day 2 at 6-3.
A person who started at 6-3, and so your last round was against a 9-5, your first round was against a 7-7, whereas Graham went 10-4, but his first round was an 11-3, his second round was an 11-3, his second round was 12-2, his third round was an 11-3, and he played an obscene schedule.
Yeah, I totally understand that, and it's just just something to think about. Different structures, maybe going just a way to think about these tournaments a little bit differently. How we could restructure them if we do find some flaws here. So, really good point about Graham. No knock against any of these players. This is just part of the system we're in right now. So before we get to talk about the bracket and all of our games here. So before we even get into the bracket, so Flavio Del Pidio, let's move into this situation here. We discover at some point that he is not going to be playing the top 8 bracket. Something happened, whether it's a hardware, software error with the system.
I heard it was a firmware error.
A firmware error. So his game was somehow left the live competition. And, once you do that, you can't really get back in. So there's too much time between his last round and the point where they had to check teams for the top 8. Is that correct?
It might have been there was too much time between the last hack check and the time they were hack checking. So it might have been that they last hack check him at the beginning of day 2, and then he was found to have left the competition after. I'm not entirely sure. I was busy playing my game.
Yeah, gotcha. So anyway, what happened is that whatever ended up happening inside the game or the DS or whatever happened there is that Flavio was essentially given a loss for the round of 8 there in the top 8. It was important to note he was not disqualified. So he was still awarded his prizes and championship points for the finish in the top 8 there. So his opponent was Wolf. Wolf got to advance to the top 8 there. Or sorry, to the top 4. Top 4, yes.
And it's important to note that I believe Pato had faced Wolf before. Flavio had faced Wolf in day 2 Swiss, I believe, and had resoundingly defeated him. So we might have had a very different tournament if Pato had actually been able to play in the top 8.
So if you believe in the multiverse theory, there's another universe where Flavio does defeat Wolf. He maybe becomes champion of this international, or someone else does. And maybe there's also another universe where Wolf beats him and then still ends up winning this thing. But the one we live in right now is the one where Flavio gets eliminated in top 8. Wolf wins the thing, and we're here in this situation with this controversy. So I just really want to quickly get all of your opinions on this, on what happened here.
Wolf got 2 buys.
That's true. When you look at it, it's true.
I don't know, dude. Graham got 3 buys. He got to play me 3 times.
Now, that is something that I wanted to... I didn't realize until now, talking to you, John, and I know we're not quite there yet, but very rarely do you get to see players play 3 times in a tournament. 2 is already pretty interesting and cool. But
Graham got to play Melvin 3 times as well. Graham played 2 players 3 times. Yeah, it was crazy. And so I'll get into that in a little bit. But with regards to Pato, there are all sorts of conspiracies flying around about how, some judge must have misunderstood Italian and canceled Pato's participation or something. And, there's a non-zero chance that that's true. But I think that, just I'm not super willing to give non-judges the benefit of the doubt. And so I'm just going to assume that this ruling was generally done in a correct manner. I would have liked to see Pato play in top 8. I think that, disqualifying disqualifying people from the top 8 when there's not a great reason to is not ideal. But I think that the theory is that, there's the potential for Pato to have been cheating, and you don't want people whose DS has left competition to re-enter competition with, potentially changed Pokemon.
Right, and Flavio was removed from the tournament, not exactly disqualified. I get your point, though.
Which is quite strange. I think it's the first time I've ever really seen something like that happen.
Yeah,
and so I'm not sure precisely what was going on to make that the correct decision. It is very unusual.
I wonder what the rules document says. Did we follow everything according to what's in there? Anyway, Alex, what are your thoughts about this?
Well, Pato took it very well. He took it in stride. So, that's just interesting to note, whether, no matter what you believe, good on him if he's just rolling with it. John had mentioned the whole judge thing, Italian thing. That's my personal theory, though we have no proof behind it, so don't go around, trying to attack any judges or something. But again, and then the thing that makes me upset about it, just this whole situation, is that we were given so little details. And I can't imagine that the judges or the people running the tournament are that in the dark about what did actually happen. They stated whatever it might have been, a firmware error or what have you. But I
also just can't imagine if a judge made Pato leave the competition that they wouldn't just say, okay, these are the 6 Mons that were in the box, we're just going to trade them over to another DS and load it up. Because you totally could have done that. And they did that in 2013 for Gavin Michaels.
Yes, they did. Because he had an inappropriate
trainer
name. Yes,
and they didn't want to stream it.
Yeah,
and so they figured out what his Pokemon were, and they traded them all over to someone else's DS, and he won the tournament anyway. And so I think that if it was just one judge had made a mistake, I imagine the judges are more than well placed and have precedent to just correct it. I can't imagine that it was just I find it very hard to imagine that it was just some judge messing up, and then they were like, no, we'll just stand behind this. It was a firmware error. That seems very wrong to me. Despite how much people might not like what TPCI has done in the past, that doesn't feel like TPCI to me.
So, yeah, I just would have liked more details, so that more transparency, so that we know exactly what did happen, how to avoid letting what happened happen to anybody else, even if it was just some very random, out of nowhere error. Happening at the time in the tournament that it did happen is very unfortunate, and it did rob us of a very good set that I think pretty much everybody would have liked to have seen.
I wanted to see it, for sure.
I would have liked to see it too, yep.
And I don't, it's hard for me to really say that there was a good reason behind it because we don't know. So, like, if, TPCI had clarified precisely what had happened, it would make it really easy to say, oh, of course there was some foul play from Pado's DS or something, or, maybe he hadn't updated his DS, or I don't know. And if it had been, a judge error, I find it very hard to believe that TPCI wouldn't have done, reasonable things within their power to make Top 8 happen. Like, not to call attention to myself or anything, but after I did some things in World's Top 8, they, were willing to let me go, I think in part because I was so far into the tournament, because it was so hard to disqualify me. And I think that, they really don't like disqualifying top 8 players if they don't have to.
And, another thing that a lot of people are crying out as evidence is that they're like, this is why we have team sheets. So it's very likely that they could not possibly have entered Pado back into the tournament because they had a team sheet. They had, and then if it was possibly a judge error, they probably could have found some kind of way to get him back into the tournament. So
by verifying the team from the team sheet and so forth.
Yeah, so it's very likely that it just was not possible. So this is how it had to end, and it's very sad. And a lot of people are going to be angry since we just don't have all the details. So I don't know if we ever will, but yeah, that's just where we are.
Yep. With that, we don't have all the details. We're just talking about what we kind of know, just a little speculation here, but this is a decision that obviously stands. This is going to be, down in our history books, and Wolf ends up winning this whole tournament here. So let's go ahead and move on to our bracket here. So, John, let's talk about your first set with Ashton.
Yeah, so I think Ashton was probably the best pairing I could have gotten in the top 8. I had lost to Graham and John Paul in Swiss. Raghav had lost to Melvin in round 1 on stream. So Melvin knew my team. I didn't know much about his, and Groudon Xerneas is always a little bit scary. And Pado and Kyle both had Komodo, which I wasn't super sure how to deal with. And Wolf is Wolf, and even though I believe my team had a favorable matchup, you don't really want to have to play Wolf when the plot armor is so much in his favor. So I think Ashton was the best pairing I could have gotten, despite the fact that Ashton frequently has plot armor in his favor. And I think I came up with a pretty good plan to beat him after getting caught off guard in game 1.
In those sets, both of John's top cut sets you can find on Pokemon's YouTube, which is something I just wanted to quick tangent on. Is that they've pretty much already uploaded all this stuff, I
saw
these
finals,
streams.
but I didn't see my sets up.
They didn't upload personal sets; they just uploaded the stream dump.
So, they just put the stream dump on YouTube. Oh, cool.
Yeah, so there's a 6-hour video, a couple 6-hour videos.
Yeah, it should be available on Pokemon's YouTube channel as well as their Twitch channels as well.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe the second game was on Pokemon VGC.
Mm-hmm. Oh, if it was on your top 4 then?
Yes, my top 4 was on the side stream.
If it was on the side stream, like my match that I played against Yamiel, then there was some channel that uploaded a video. I don't know the legitimacy behind that because it was not Pokemon Official, but Pokemon Official has not yet tackled VGC stream, but on YouTube. But I believe you can still find those on Twitch.
Yes, the VODs are still up.
And anyway, John, you were able to move on to top 4 because you defeated Ashton. And this is where that
you guys should really watch that game, by the way. The game is the game I had against Ashton was phenomenal. The set's really interesting. And if you like watching me get destroyed, you'll have fun. If you like watching me pull a comeback victory, you'll also have fun. Just depends on when you stop watching.
And if you like to watch John pop off, you get to see a lot of John pop offs.
Oh, you get to see me pop off all the time.
Nice.
With regards to the Z dances, though, Ashton and I had come to an agreement about that before we started. Ashton was like, if I do the Z dances, it's nothing personal. I was like, all right, sounds good. And so I did the Z dances. He did the Z dances. He did the fist, the Goa and
Punch
the Goa fist thing. That game one. Yeah, gotcha. No, when you go, like the player character, like slams their fist against their palm, they're like
Guardian
so Ashton
of Alola,
did that game 1, and I got to give the thumbs up in game 3 for the Let's Snuggle Forever.
Yes.
Yeah. I like that you both had a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah. We had nice chats before and after the game. And Ashton let me know that he was uncomfortable with some of my behavior, and I took that to heart.
And so then that fateful rematch happens in the very next round in top 4 against Graham.
And I Anosh and some Japanese. So I had come to meet some of the Australians who are at the tournament, including Shohei Kimura, Yuya Tada, and Akanuma. I do not know his personal name, but Akanuma. And I was talking to them and Anosh and Rajan and Raghav, and I was like, yo guys, how do I beat Graham? And everyone was really confused as to how I could possibly have a matchup. But I believe YT came up with a plan, which is largely what I used in game. YT in combination with Anosh and Rajan, all kind of working together over a few different iterations of plans, came up with something that was very close to what I in fact did for game 1, which was to lead Rayquaza Coco and turn 1 switch out the Rayquaza into Incineroar, hope that Graham would fake out the Rayquaza, and then I was going to Volt out and set up a Trick Room, and I managed to do that by setting up a Dragon Dance, chipping the Lunala, KOing the Lunala as trick in order to set my Trick Room, and also burning the Z move with my Protect. And I also made a really lovely play towards the end of the game where I decided that Graham was going to get very greedy. So I could talk about the specific situation if you guys want.
I do not want you to. No, I'm just jokes aside though. I think Pokemon stories are rather boring, and so I think we'd rather just have the players see them if they wanted to.
And then Graham destroyed me in game 2 because he made a good read, and I lost immediately.
Not worth mentioning though that game 1, your plan nearly came to fruition, but then Mimikyu let you down by missing Play Rough.
Well, so the plan actually did come to fruition. So I had there was a 100% win con for the end of game 1, and I didn't notice it.
Yes, a lot of people were telling me this, so you did risk it on that 90% because, it's Pokemon, we're not going to always see the guaranteed win.
No, the 90% would have won me the game, and I had 100% on the next turn.
Yes.
Even after missing, I had a guaranteed victory.
Just didn't quite see it in the 45 seconds that you had to think.
The 45 seconds, yeah. And so there are 2 lessons I actually want to indicate to people. The first is that you should look at all of your options. I think I was stuck too much on looking at the Pokemon on my left's options to think about the options I had from my rightmost Pokemon. And so I didn't think about my options efficiently. And also, I knew there was going to be pretty much 1 turn left in the game, but I didn't take the full 45 seconds to switch in my Pokemon to think about the play and see if there were any options. I had kind of just given up.
Okay.
And so I think that, and so the critical lesson that I think people should learn from this is do not give up. There are sometimes when it's appropriate to forfeit, but when it's literally the end of the line, there's nothing else. Look at everything you can, take as much time as you can to think about the way to win the game. And because I missed it. I don't think I would have won game 3 anyway, but I think there's a lot to learn from, doing your best to see all the situations.
Yeah, no, I'm strongly with you there on the whole idea of just don't give up, right? Especially when everything's on the line there. And even though you're saying you probably wouldn't have won game 3, you just never know in these situations. You got to give yourself the opportunity for that.
Yes. Yeah, I could have won game 3 if I had, played really well or something. There definitely was a chance for me to do that, but I didn't give myself that opportunity. Me saying I would have lost game 3 is my way of consoling myself for what happened.
Understandable. So, yeah, the way the rest of this bracket plays out, so Graham advances to finals on your side of the bracket, and then we see Wolf advancing into the top 4 and defeating John Paul there. John Paul had defeated Kyle Livinghouse in that first round, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so this sets up our finals of Wolf Glick from the US versus Graham Amity from Australia. We got to wait an entire day for that, sit through the trading card game finals as well as the junior and senior divisions of the VGC side. Really quickly, just want to point out those winners here. We had... snap. I don't remember the winners here. Who won from Singapore in juniors?
Oh, I've forgotten the name. I know that Kareem won in seniors.
Yes, Kareem Makit won in seniors from the United States. And then I'm just going to be looking this up really quick.
So I do think it's worth noting that Steven mentioned we had to do some waiting for these matches on the second day, or the third day of competition. And during that time, they took the time to record some kind of like hype videos. You'd almost see it, like if you watch other esports, you might be more familiar with where they record personal interactions with the players. And so they recorded this video. There was a hilarious blunder at the beginning where they misspelled VGC. I don't think that's that hard to spell, but they spelled it as VCG, and it was quite hilarious. But otherwise, a very cool video. Very cool to see that they ended up creating something like this.
I'd heard that was going to happen, and I was just really hoping it was going to be me. I was really hoping Melvin was going to beat Graham, and then I was going to beat Melvin, and I was going to be in finals, because I saw a lot about this on Twitter. Apparently a lot of people were hoping to see me and Wolf rematch.
It would have been very cool, and we had not yet mentioned that, but there was the chance. There was the chance, opposite sides of brackets, John and Wolf could have had a rematch in finals, which would have been insane.
There was so much hype for that one, like you have no idea. But I did find that I was
pretty hyped for it.
If only. But it was Connor Yen or Connor Wen from Singapore who defeated Kenneth Fung in juniors. And then it was, again, we mentioned already, Kareem Makit, who defeated Quentin Cologne, both who are from the United States. And then we're going to talk about our Masters finals a little more in depth here. But, so they made that little typo there. Probably just like tried to copy-paste TCG and then forgot to switch the letters at the end and stuff. But a funny blunder nonetheless. So heading into this finals, Wolf is the clear favorite to win this thing, right?
As a player.
As a player. I mean, Graham's just a major underdog. So, let's just quickly go into this matchup here and what happened in these games.
But in physical strength, I think Graham had him, beat.
Oh, gotcha.
Graham is massive.
That's
Graham
what you're
is
referencing.
So big. Graham has ginormous arms. It's terrifying.
So when I saw Graham in finals, I was getting very much a Chase vibe the year that he won in 2016, which was a similar format enough to this, and I thought we were going to have another Team Tank Top win, because that was something that Chase made a kind of, not like a big deal, but something that was talked a lot about during his run, is that he won, I think, wearing a tank top, and so he kept tweeting out, like, hashtag Team Tank Top.
No, he's part of Team Tank Top. That's like a group of people. That existed back in the past.
In the finals, Graham wears the Australian flag.
Yes, so he was going to be covering up those.
It looked like he didn't have a tank top, but it's more long sleeve.
But actually, I believe that I expected Graham to win based on team matchup. Not to be mean to Aaron Traylor here, because I know he's heard this a lot, but Graham beat Aaron round 2 of day 1. And so people were expecting Graham to be the favorite in the matchup, even if not the favored player per se. Wolf spent the whole night prepping, though, with Aaron and some other people, and seemed to come up with a really excellent plan. The lead they had and the baits they made worked really well against Graham. And also, I think Graham doesn't really understand Wolf as a player that well. And so he didn't really appreciate the way Wolf was going to approach some of the situations.
And a lot of people had mentioned, so my thought looking at it was that Graham's team seemed unfamiliar enough. It was pretty off meta, despite having a lot of strong Pokemon that we're very familiar with, and a Mega Metacham, which is screaming, very different, very unfamiliar. Kyogre Lunala is not a super common restricted duo, and I thought that might just be enough to make it so that Wolf's team might not have had a matchup. However, one thing is Graham seems to be a very strong player in catching his opponents off guard, and when Wolf has a whole night to prep, it's going to be very hard for Graham to do that. And so I had Wolf and Graham played the same day that they had played top 4 on that Saturday. I'm under the assumption that I think Graham would have won.
Yeah, that's definitely not unreasonable to think about. Wolf's preparation was wonderful. I don't really have a problem with finals being a match that gets prepped for, necessarily, because one match has to get prepped for, and I think having it be finals is kind of cool. But Wolf, one of the things I think about Wolf is that he's a very defensive player, except for like pretty much one turn every game when he hard reads and makes this like really aggressive option. And he decided to do these aggressive options really early and caught Graham off guard with them.
Yeah, one of the biggest things here is that, you know, after Wolf had won Worlds in 2016, did anyone really think he wasn't going to win anything else after that? Like, he's going to keep on coming. So this like third, you know, international win really wasn't a big surprise to me. You know, Graham was making plays in both those games there, but just Wolf had more. He had more than enough to, you know, take care of it, win the set in 2 games. So not surprised to see Wolf win yet another huge major tournament here. And again, like he's mentioned this a lot, but he's the first and only player to win a regional, national, international, and the world championships. You know, the nationals are now phased out. So
yeah, I was going to say, I saw that and I thought it was a little unfair because I was like, well, a lot of players don't even have the chance.
It's like, because the nationals have been phased out now, and like,
what about JAA? Wolf can never win JAA anymore.
But that's right, but that's like not official VGC stuff, you know. That's predates that era.
Well, at this point, nationals aren't official VGC anymore either.
They're VCG finals.
The VCG finals. That's right. So
Wolf's the only player to win a VCG finals.
True. So
that's really impressive.
But still, like 3 times winning that U.S. national event, and I'm saying this in air quotes and all that, but still really strong showing from him. I don't know, just like with some of the Pokemon we saw here, what do you think about, like, what's the metagame impact going to happen here? Because I feel like a lot of people are going to throw Celesteela on their team, same with Medicham, Mimikyu, maybe you'll see more Tornadus pop up than we already have seen, but you know, where do we go here? Where do we go from here for these next few weeks?
I think it's that last one that you mentioned. You can't just brush that aside. There were so many Tornadus, specifically the Kang Torn teams. A lot of players were able to find success using the common core 4 of Kangaskhan, Tornadus, Groudon, and Xerneas. And not to make fun of the players, but it seems to be a very straightforward team. And so I expect that players are going to kind of take the Ashton approach that he took for this team, and, you know, modify it, see what else you can do with it. Ashton ended up changing out 2 of the Pokemon for something that we saw on John's team.
Ashton changed out 1 of the Pokemon.
No, Ashton changed out 2. There was
Ashton changed out 2. Pato changed 1.
Yes, Pato did also change out 1, and so, but the core remains the same. That's just this strong group of Pokemon, and it obviously works very well, and I expect it to still be prevalent going forward, looking into Worlds.
Yeah, so what's interesting is I think the last 2 Pokemon are kind of the Ray-Ogre matchup. So I'm not super sure what the Mawwile's there for, but the Como is very much there as a Ray-Ogre matchup. It's not good against most other things which tend to have Xerneas on them. And so Ashton instead chose Metagross Koko as his Ray-Ogre matchup. I think that a lot of these teams did well, in part because they dodged a lot of Ray-Ogre. Ashton said he had he didn't play any Ray-Ogre until top 8. I didn't play any Ray-Ogre the entire tournament, despite my team being teched to help beat the Ray-Ogre matchup. And so I'm not super sure that I think this team will need some refining to maybe give it an even better Ray-Ogre matchup going into Worlds, if we think that Ray-Ogre's popularity will increase going into Worlds.
But something that should still be a strong consideration for players heading into Worlds.
For sure. The Kangaskhan, Tornadus, Groudon, Xerneas core, double roar and a taunt with just really powerful Pokemon in Groudon, and like I think it's modest Groudon and max speed timid Xerneas. It puts out a ton of pressure, and something I expect to see at Worlds for sure. The other thing that I think was actually really cool that came out of this international was the prevalence of Mega Metagross. So if you look at the top 32 usage statistics, there were more Metagross than there were Mega Gengar or Mega Kangaskhan, or even like Amoonguss or Stakataka. There were more Mega Metagross was the most used Steel type in Day 2. And that's insane, considering it had almost no usage going into NAIC. So I used I was one of the few players who used Mega Metagross in Day 2. I used it in addition to used the same team as Raghav Malavia. We used very similar teams. We both of our teams were very similar to the team used by Shohei Kimura, who also had Metagross Coco, who also had no, this is wrong. He had a Feeny. He had Metagross, Kyogre, Incin, Mimikyu, Feeny instead of Coco, which is something we were considering. Ashton used Metagross, and Kevin Swastik also used Metagross. Metagross felt amazing when I was playing it. It felt like Zerndon teams had a really tough time dealing with it, despite the fact that they had that some of them had Earthquake Salamence. It felt like Metagross was really powerful and was able to get the drop on a lot of the Xerneas I managed to fight, even when they had Lunala or Groudon or stuff like that.
I have a question for you about the Metagross here. So essentially it's like, why Metagross? Why did you choose Mega Metagross over other Steel types?
Okay, so one of the best things about Mega Metagross is that it's fast and it does damage. So there are a lot of Steel types in this format. You got Ferrothorn, you got Bronzong, you have Celesteela, you have Kartana, you have Metagross, you have Dialga, you even have Excadrill apparently, and you have Stakataka. So the thing about Stakataka is that our team was actually pretty weak to, we felt our team was pretty weak to Amoonguss, Groudon, Xerneas. We felt that we would have a really hard time dealing with Amoonguss, Groudon in particular, and the way we set up the team felt like we gave ourselves more options to play around Amoonguss by going fast into the Zerndon mode as opposed to slow into it. Groudon is also Metagross is also able to hit Groudon before it attacks, so you can do a bunch of damage to that with, the potential from a Nature's Madness from your Coco, or with some priority damage, and it just puts out a lot more offensive pressure. The turn stack has to use Trickery. Metagross also has Bullet Punch, which is really cool because priority enables you to do that extra little bit of chip to, all those Pokemon that have taken a little bit of damage over the course of the game. So I felt like Metagross just really pressured Groudon Xerneas teams. And I didn't have too much. I don't think I lost to Groudon. Yeah, I didn't lose to Groudon Xerneas the entire tournament. Only played 3, but I didn't lose 2.
Cool, fantastic. So, really quick, just speaking on probably the most uncommon members from the finals matchup, Celesteela and Medicham, who I mentioned earlier. Lightning around here. Do we expect Medicham to be picked up across the metagame? Because I feel like this is a thing Graham can use, but not many players are going to get comfortable with.
Medicham was really good on Lunala Kyogre because Lunala Kyogre needs things that threaten Incineroar. Graham's team did a very good job of threatening Incineroar with Mega Medicham. I don't think Medicham is generally good.
Agree.
And now, Celesteela, I feel like, is something that can pick up a lot more just because of its typing, the way you can operate it as a support Pokemon, and, gives you some options here. So I feel like this is something that will be picked up some more. By the time Worlds comes around, I don't know if people will have found stronger solutions or different solutions for this slot.
Celesteela seemed like it was really mostly well-placed to be played on a team with Kyogre. Celesteela is not great against Incineroar, so you really want the thing that just makes Incineroar go away. And when you have Kyogre, unless you're doing something very strange, you're almost certainly going to have a Rayquaza. Rayquaza also pairs very well with Celesteela to make it resist, now resists ice moves, it resists electric moves, it resists rock, and so Rayquaza, but resisting electric is the most important one. So I think Celesteela might find
neutral
a home
to electric.
It makes it neutral to electric. It gives it an additional multiplier against all those types.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I feel like Celesteela might make an impact, but I think it has to be found on Kyogre. I don't think there's much place for it on other archetypes.
Yeah, and that is absolutely something we did see in the finals of just Celesteela being able to, help use the Delta Stream to its advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's a quick wrap up of the North America International Championship. Now we want to do one last topic here. We're going to try and make this fast, but so we can get out of everybody's hair. But we have 8 weeks until the World Championships in Washington, D.C. Now, for a lot of people, our seasons have ended, right? So this includes me. Did not qualify for the World Championships. We have an undisclosed amount of time until the next season's going to begin. Could be in July like it happened last season or whatever. Could be later. But for two groups of players here, we have the players who are qualified for Worlds and who will be attending. And we also have the group who has not qualified and the season's over and we're kind of just waiting for what's next. What should all these players be doing with their time right now? In your opinion?
Well, my personal thought is doing anything but Pokemon.
Yeah, I think taking a break from Pokemon's really good. Personally, I think that, if you give yourself time to, take it back, slow down, and then come back to it you can come back to it with renewed vigor, a new insight, and I think you'll be able to perform better. But If you don't want to stop playing Pokemon, I like random battles, and I really like Doubles OU right now, so I think investigating Doubles OU as a format, quick plug, I wrote an article about it on Trainer Tower. I think that'd be a really cool thing to do. I think it helped me get back into playing Pokemon really seriously, and so that was something I enjoyed doing in my downtime.
For the month of July, I think players should use this, dead month as a time to just take a break from VGC. It does go year-round, and Worlds isn't until a little bit of time in August. As for those players without invites, once, August comes around, or maybe earlier, whenever you feel like it, if you have friends that have Worlds invites, feel free to help them out because, everything's still helpful. Your advice is still valuable. You're still able to help play test games. In fact, players without Worlds invites or players that are not going to be attending Worlds are some of the most valuable people to play test games against. It helps with confidentiality. It allows you to play best of threes against people that are not your competition. So, that's just something else to consider doing with your time is help out friends.
It can be hard to find people to play against when you're going to Worlds because you don't know who they're going to talk to and or you don't know if you're going to play them at Worlds. So having a set of people who you can play against with, competent team archetypes and who might be thinking of ideas is really cool. It's a good time to practice your team building to see what things will look like, maybe help out your friends, or, take a break, relax, no pressure anymore. Do something else with your life and come back to Pokemon when the season starts again.
Yeah, I'm all about just for players, just take a break. Whether you're qualified for Worlds or not, just take a few breaks. We just came out of the last international. Take a few weeks to relax, unwind. If you're heading to Worlds, can start picking up prep and practice soon or whenever you want to. But just relax, enjoy the time off because our season is year round now. And like you mentioned, all about practice with other players. Go at your own pace. So I think everyone should just know what's best for you.
There's one thing I actually want to really encourage, and that's speculation as to what the post-Worlds format is going to be, because I noticed that when the formats were announced, it said specific dates, and Ultra Series was from April to Worlds. So there's no confirmation on what the post-Worlds format could be, and I personally am hoping it's a GS Cup like we have right now, but an underused version where they ban the most used restricteds like Yveltal, Xerneas, Rayquaza, Groudon, Kyogre, and Lunala, and Ultra Necrozma. And they just ban all of those entirely, and we get to play, but keep Incineroar. And we get to play GS Cup with, where the best restricteds are dragons, and we get to play with, Kyurem White and Dialga and Palkia, and have some of the less used Pokemon in the less used restricteds get some of the limelight. So I encourage as much speculation on that as possible.
Gotta give some love to Cosmog.
Cosmog has CP, dude. There was one point in the season where Cosmog had more CP than I did.
Well, I guess that's a good thing that changed, but yeah, I'm all open for the speculation. You know, we've done an episode or part of an episode talking about this already. Yeah, so bring on whatever wacky format's gonna be coming afterwards. You know, I'm all open to that. You know, making it a little, you know, taking some of the top restricteds away, just seeing how different the format might be. So I'm with you, John.
Also, like, Xerneas is broken and was a mistake and they should delete it from the game, but insofar as they're not deleting it from the game, I'm fine, you know, just playing without it for a little bit in a restricted format.
May not even make it to Sword and Shield, but
here's hoping.
That's a wrap for our show this time. We just wanted to say thank you to Jonathan Evans for joining us this week.
Lovely to be with you guys. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Now, really quick here, everyone, remember, you can leave us comments, give us feedback, leave us questions for the show. You can email us at vgchypervoice@gmail.com. You can also do that on YouTube, where you can find us there. You can also find us on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play. A new place, another new platform, is Spotify. We're now on Spotify. You can search for The Hypervoice on Spotify, find us there, and do the same things is to download, listen, and you can also find the show on Facebook. We have our Facebook group, and you can also follow The Hypervoice on Twitter at The Hypervoice. Now, you can also follow the three of us individually as well. You can follow me at Super Morioka. Alex, where can people follow you?
You can follow me at Lexicon VGC.
And John, where can people follow you?
I think I'm at Ezra VGC, and I also might be doing some streaming soon on Twitch, now that I know that I have this new, brand new microphone, and coming off my performance, I feel like I might, want to put out some content for the people.
Awesome.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the listener who has been listening to our show. We really appreciate it. And we hope you stay tuned for more of The Hypervoice.
Alola.
Peace out, friends.